Prisha, and I'm the Director of Content Creation for Mission MathMinds. And with us, we have Mita. Mita, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Risha. So I am Mita Lakhia. I am a privacy lawyer at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals.
Okay. And would you like to maybe talk about a little bit more about what you do there?
Yeah, of course. So I have been practicing law for over 10 years and always in the privacy and intellectual property space. So while I was at a big law firm for a long time, while I was there, I worked on a lot of cases that dealt with patents and with trade secrets, and I worked really closely with scientists. And now that I work at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, I do actually a lot of work in this space. So much of the work that I do deals with how privacy laws impact what we can do with data. And the data that we work with, of course, at Regeneron is a lot of it is health data and genetic data. So I work really closely with our data scientists, with a lot of our geneticists and our bioethicists, and I learn a lot what about how identifiable your RNA is, for example, right? And what changes we can make to it where we can still do this really, really great science while still protecting people's privacy and needs.
I think that people have a lot of preconceived notions about like being a lawyer. Whenever you watch those TV shows, are always in court, always arguing about like these witnesses and all of that. Do you want to dispel some of those myths? What do you think are some things that people might not expect from working?
Yes, of course. So I think one key thing is that I am never in court. So I never do any of that. I do, and also when I negotiate things, I'm doing exactly that. I'm negotiating, right? Versus it's always a very friendly conversation in my space. Because usually when we're working with someone, either it's a partner, someone we're getting information from, or somebody, an institution where we are collaborating on a big scientific research project, and we want to make sure that all the parties are getting what they need, right? So I think sometimes people assume that as the attorney, you either are, like you said, doing things that are much more confrontational, which I am not. Or you're also coming in and telling your business, and in my case, my business is all the scientists, that they can't do something, right? My answer is always that you can do something. We just have to make sure we're able to do it the right way, right? And I find that when I give that type of advice, my business, like my clients, which are all these wonderful scientists and doctors, are very receptive of that because they also want to do the right thing, right? We're all working towards the same goals, which is, helping people be healthier in different ways, right? And helping people who have certain illnesses be able to live with them and surpass them. But it's really important for me that we're doing it the right way, right? So making sure that we're working in a partnership is always really important.
That was very enlightening. So going back to your childhood, did you have any female role models when you grew up, specifically in STEM, but if not, just anyone that stood out to you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I would say I was always in awe of a number of different people, right? So I think on like the smaller front, I have a sister who is 4 years older than me, who was always a big role model for me. She is now a doctor, but she considers herself very much a scientist. She works in research. But she taught me a lot about setting goals, about achieving them, about doing things um, that you think maybe like you've never seen done before, right? And so that I think is a huge influence in my life. I also think, let's see, other big role models for me. I had some horrific teachers growing up, right? Which I think like really stood out to me. My anatomy teacher in particular in high school was a very big figure in my life. She was really open about getting us to try new things, about making us understand kind of like how things fit together, that women do these things, right? And it really encouraged me to try new things, which I think was really important. When I went on to undergrad, I studied I studied marketing and I studied Plan 2, which is this broad-based liberal arts degree where you study the arts and the scientists. And through that, I feel like I had a lot of great professors and teachers and opportunities to see women in particular, both in science and in liberal arts, go on to do really interesting things. So
And during high school or undergrad, did you ever feel any like female male like power imbalance?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think through my education, maybe not as much. But if you fast forward to my professional career, yes. So oftentimes, I am the only person who looks like me on the phone during very important calls. Most of the time. So I would say in my last couple of jobs in particular, this one as well, right? Um, and I have found that oftentimes I'm both the youngest, I am the only minority, and oftentimes I'm also the only woman. And at first, that was always a little surprising to me, a little intimidating to me, I think. Um, but in fact, I think through the pandemic and through the fact that more and more of my work calls look like this, where it's a video call, I always turn my video on because I want them to see me. I want them to know who I am, right? And that typically I'm also the only one on the phone who has my job, right? So I'm working with people within the business, different scientists, different leaders of the organization. But I have a very particular voice as their attorney, right? And I want to make sure that they see me and they equate it with that. I will say that now that I work at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals more directly in the science space, I actually work with very diverse teams, which is really wonderful, and a lot of women, which is really nice to see that, particularly in science leadership positions. So it's been really nice to see that.
And have you ever had any like specific challenges as a female, or is it is it just more of like the mental like, oh, I'm the only female minority?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? So I think it's easy to be a little intimidated by it, right? Being the only woman on the phone, right? And it's easier. I think when I was younger in my career, I would be slower to speak up, right? But I think where I am now, I don't feel that as much. So, and if I had advice for my younger self, I would definitely have like spoken up sooner, right? And I think that's the biggest thing because it's intimidating to us, but at the same time, when you're there, people do want to hear from you, right? You deserve to be in the room, right? And I think like the more and more that like women speak up in these environments, the less and less it will feel as intimidating for everybody.
It's so true. So talking about maybe how you came to where you are today, is there anything that you wish you did differently other than maybe like speaking up more, but maybe like class wise?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say, don't be intimidated by things, right? And also, like there's something to be said for exploring what you're interested in, right? So like I took a lot of math and science courses when I was in high school. And then when I went to college, I took less of them. And part of that was because I had already tested out of chemistry and physics and biology, and I wasn't intending to major in it, right? But then part of me was like, I really considered for a semester, I was like, well, what if I minored in biology? Because I just thought it was really interesting. I really liked genetics. And when I went to consider signing out for it, I was talking to some other people, and everybody who was in those classes was pre-med, right? And that is just not what I wanted to do. So I was really just intimidated by it. And because of that, I kind of went a different direction. And I don't totally regret that, but I think I would have enjoyed learning that, right? Would I necessarily have done spectacular at it? I don't know. It wasn't my core focus, right? But I also don't know that I wouldn't have. And so I would say that like explore those things. It's okay to fail, right? It's okay to not be the best at everything. Um, but if you have the interest, like go after it. And I think that's really important. I would say also, like I said, like making sure that you like speak up, that you understand that you're the one, like you deserve to be in the room, right? And also to seek out mentors. I think that's really, really important, like to seek out people that you connect with. And that's something that I was not as good at younger in my career or in college, but I think I'm much better at as my career has progressed, right? And now it's interesting because I am still looking for mentors, right? But I'm also looking for young people that I can help, right? Because you realize you have so much to give, right? But people want to talk to you about what they do, right? And I think it's just really important to like do that, to seek out those opportunities. And I wish I did a little bit more of that, I think, when I was a little younger.
Yeah, I agree. That's very important. That is actually part of why I am interviewing you, right? Building the largest connection of female role models. But yeah, I think that was some great advice. Are there any last words that you have to say to us?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, go and do all the things, right? I would say I never, I don't consider myself a scientist, but I work very closely with scientists. But I will say, and I always think of, particularly now that I have a daughter, that I've been in a lot of rooms in my career, and because of what I do, oftentimes I'm on the phone with engineers and scientists and doctors, and they're often the smartest people in the room, right? So I think it's really important to explore that, right? There's so many opportunities there. Even if you study one of these things and then you decide to become an attorney, right? I work with many attorneys that are like that have stronger science backgrounds, and or if you decide to be a consultant, or if you decide to do something else. I think it offers you so many great opportunities that you really would encourage people to continue to look into all of these different things that STEM has to offer. And I know that I want the same thing for my daughter.
Okay, thank you so much. That was so it was fun to interview you. Have a great day and bye.
Bye. Thank you.